Good morning, YouTube friends and family, and welcome back to the Wellness Homesteader. So today we're going to do something really fun. We are going to learn how to make our own candles that are just as good, if not maybe a little better, than what you can buy at those high-end candle stores or department stores. So let's get to it. Well, when I first started making candles, I thought, how hard can it really be? Melt a little wax, put a little fragrance in it, add some color if you want. Easy peasy, right? Little did I know that there is actually an art and a science to making candles that actually will burn evenly, that will not smoke, and that are safe to use. So let's begin today by talking about the different types of wax that you can choose to use. So there are three basic kinds of wax. The first type, and please excuse this giant bag, is a paraffin wax. Now, I buy my wax, and I'll leave the link below in the description box, from Candle Science. And this is called Comfort Wax, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go along. So I've already pre-measured it. This is much harder to scoop out than, say, a soy wax. Soy is softer, or soy flakes. So I pre-measured. So here's an example, and please excuse the red dye that got on these, of what a soy wax might look like. And this I actually purchased from Brambleberry. I've had this for a long time, and if you're new to my channel, you may not know, I am allergic to soybean. So I choose personally not to use soy wax. And we're going to talk about the advantages and the different disadvantages of using your wax of choice. And then the final type of wax is beeswax. So this is actually my sacred candle that I won't burn. This is made from wax from my bees when I had my honeybees. And I did this in like I think a milk carton container. So it smells delicious. It smells just like honey to me, or beeswax, but that has a honey smell to it. So it's kind of for showing, not for burning. So anyway, so how do you know what to start with, and why would you choose one wax over the other? When soy wax first came out, you may have all heard all of the controversy about how paraffin wax, the big block wax, is really bad for you because it's made from oil or petroleum distillates in the earth that they have harvested. But let me share something with you. Have you ever stopped to think about soy? Soy in the US today is GMO. It is not herbicide and pesticide free, so you really don't know what you're getting in your soy wax unless you're purchasing organic. There's also some thought that burning paraffin wax is not as healthy because it produces more soot. And we're going to talk about ways to decrease the amount of soot that your candle puts off. But the truth of the matter is, soy candles can also put off soot. Another factor to consider is, what are you using as a fragrance oil? So we've talked in our soap making videos about phthalates, which is PHTHLATES. I finally learned how to spell that. But it's a chemical that has thought to be detrimental to your health and may play a role in causing cancer. So I chose the Comfort Wax for a few reasons. One is, it's certainly not the cheapest wax. It does, I can say I've tried a lot of different waxes, in my opinion, produce the best candle. It burns the longest, produces the least amount of soot. It is not under California Proposition 65. And if y'all aren't familiar with that, that is a California-based rule about labeling things that may be unsafe or detrimental to your health. So it is considered safe. It also holds the most fragrance oil of all the waxes that you can purchase today on the market. So up to 2 ounces per pound of wax, which is a lot of fragrance oil. So you're going to get a candle that smells really, really good and has what they call a good scent throw, which means it distributes the aroma through your house. And don't we all like to have our house smell good? But there's more to it, even once you've chosen your wax and a safe fragrance oil. So do you just melt it and pop it in your container? Well, we have to talk a little bit about wicks. So I'm going to, I've got stuff everywhere, guys. I mean, like everywhere. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start melting my first batch of wax. So I did purchase, and you can see where they've been in the water. I have a lot of lime and calcium in my water. I have measured out, scooped out enough to do 2 16-ounce jar candles. So I've got 1 container of that, and then we're gonna do a smaller batch in a different scent and color in the smaller jars, which, yes, I am using mason jars, guys, because you can clean the jars out and reuse them for candles, so I don't feel like it's wasteful. So hang tight a moment. I am going to get my wax melting, and then we'll come back and talk a little bit about wicks, so stay tuned. Well, you may just think that it's easy to go to the store, pick up candle wicks from Michael's or from your local craft store, but there is actually a measurement that you need to be aware of. So on the Candle Science website, they have a wick guide. Now, you don't have to necessarily buy their wicks, but what you can do is look at the recommended wick, and they are different if you see for containers versus votives versus soy versus paraffin. So today we are going to be using a comfort wax, and we're using a large, so we're going to use the L20 wicks, LX20, excuse me. So why is that important? So how many times have you all bought this lovely candle from Walmart? And I love scent in the home. I do diffuse essential oils, and I also burn candles. But you get this candle and you think, this is amazing, and it's such a bargain, you know? And not to knock Walmart, because I'm totally a Walmart shopper, but you get home, you light it, and it burns straight down, and that's the end of it. Well, that is because the wick is not of sufficient diameter or material to melt that pool of wax all the way through so that your candle will burn evenly. Or maybe you start burning, but the wax clings to the side and you end up with sort of this wall of wax around the edge of your container. And I don't burn votives because I have a cat. He doesn't really bother anything like that. He knows what hot means, but I feel like they're a little bit safer than votives, plus they burn longer. Or have you ever gotten a candle and every time you light it, it's going tss, 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 and spitting at you? There's a reason for that as well. So too much fragrance oil, the wax won't hold, and so it will tend to puddle or pool. So if you see those beads on the top of a candle, like when you open it to smell it in the store, step away, because that will spark and it will also produce a lot more soot in your home. So how do we get by all that? What are the best wicks? Well, know your container, and it really depends on the diameter of your container. That's how that chart I showed you is based. So even though this is twice as large as this, the diameters are the same. They're regular mouth jars. So before we start pouring the wax, the next thing I'm going to do, before I start selecting my wicks and laying those out, I'm going to pop my jars in the oven on warm. So here's another problem you commonly see when you purchase store-bought candles. How many times have you looked at the jar and thought, why are there big gaps between the wax and the jar? You know, it's not sticking to the jar all the way around. A couple reasons for that. The jar was too cool when they poured the wax, so the wax contracts, and that leads to uneven burning as well as more soot. See, I told you there was a little bit of a science to this. Have I ever produced a terrible candle? Oh yeah, a few, but I've kind of got it down to a science now. So let me pop these into the oven. Then I'm gonna straighten up a little bit here, and I'll bring you back and we'll talk a little bit about the wicks that I'm going to use today and why. Okay, so now you're ready you've got your wax melting, you've got your jars in your oven on warm. Now we're ready to prepare our wicks. So again, guys, there's a lot of dye on these just because of the way I stored them, but I am using the LX20 6-inch pre-tabbed wicks. So these actually have the little metal base so that the wick will stand up straight, and then we'll talk about how you put those in the jars so that you don't end up, have you ever bought a candle with an off-centered wick and then it burns like this? Yeah. The other type that I love to use for my little jars are these wooden wicks, and those come with a metal base that I still use some adhesive tabs, which you can buy these on Candle Science website, to actually anchor it down. Now, if you go out and you look at a website that's how to make your own candles at home, they're going to tell you, well, dip that wick base into wax and then sit it in your candle. So what do you think is going to happen first and foremost when that wax hits the hot jar? It's going to melt and slide around. And certainly then when you go to pour your wax, that wick is going to pop up. So having that adhesive tab is imperative to having a well-centered wick and therefore a well-burning candle. So I did want to show you one other thing before I try to clean this up a little more. So this is what a soy candle will look like, and I did make this. This is a iced cinnamon roll candle, and it is soy. As my soy allergy has gotten a little bit worse, I've chosen now not to work with soy because I seem to have a reaction every time I do. So if you can see the difference in the translucence between these two, this one has a milky appearance and this is much clearer. So this is the comfort wax or the paraffin wax, and this one is called Christmas Eve. So this one just has a regular mason jar lid, and this has a lid that I've been buying and I love having because the soot, and this has not been burned, will collect inside this lid and you won't have as much soot in your house, because all candles, I don't care if they're soy or not, do put off a degree of soot. I did light this one. Here is one of my wood wick candles, and can you hear? One of the reasons I love wood wick candles is they crackle like a fireplace. So I really enjoy having them. I can tell you, I have burned this candle for hours and hours and hours. I feel like the wood wicks do provide a slower burn, therefore a longer lasting candle. And this one is like a pumpkin cinnamon. So it's kind of conflicting with all my spring scents I've got going on in my wax warmers and diffusers here. So I'm gonna blow this out. I'm going to straighten up here a little bit, check on our wax, and then we'll come back and talk about adding fragrance, adding color, and then finally pouring our candles. Well, our wax is now melted, so we are ready to add some colorant as well as some fragrance. So what have I done with my iPad? Too many devices sometimes, right? So when you purchase candle wax, and this is the page for the Comfort Blend Wax, it will tell you the properties, what it's suitable for, what's the maximum amount of fragrance, which is 2 ounces per pound, as I shared, the recommended wick, what its melt point is, but the important piece is the pour temp, which you see is 180. So I just checked this, and we are at about 196. So the next step is we're going to add some colorant. Now I do purchase candle colorant because you want a color that is suitable, of course, to be burned and then thus inhaled. So I am going to make my first candle blue. And a word of caution, guys, if you've seen, I've got red already on my hands. These colorants are permanent. So whenever I get them out, I try to put them on a sheet of some sort because invariably I manage to dribble them somewhere. So let me try to show you here. So we've got some pretty blue wax. I thought that would be a nice summery scent, or summery color. And then I have pre-measured, according to my ounces of wax, my fragrance oil, which is called Flip Flops. And it smells amazing. It kind of smells like suntan lotion. Okay. So we are right at 180 with adding our colorants. So I'm going to grab my jars here. and we're going to set our wicks. Now, I've already pre-tabbed these, and I am going to very scientifically use a knife to center the wick in the bottom of the jar, push it down. I'm going to work kind of quickly here since our wax is at temperature. I should have done this prior. You know, sometimes when you try to teach, it's harder to make a video than it is to just do it like you normally would do it. Okay. Once you're satisfied with placement, I do use wick holders. So as you can see, our wicks are leaning against the side. So, and excuse the wax, these little metal bars have a notch in them. So you can pull that wick up tight and center it. And that, my friends, is a big and important piece of having a candle that burns evenly. So let me just set this other one here. And now, let me double check our temperature. Yeah, we're good. Oh my word, does that ever smell good, guys? This will make you want summer. Now, when you pour, and this is lovely color of blue, I will share with you, as this cools, you will get that dip in the middle. But don't despair, because we can then melt and pour a little bit of wax on top, and I might be a little shy. Yeah. To cover that dip so we have a nice even candle. Another key is once you've got them poured, don't jiggle them around a lot. So I'm going to wait for my second batch of wax to melt. I'm going to go ahead and place my wicks, my wooden wicks, in the smaller jars. And then we will make some red candles scented in Glitzy Girl, which is a very fruity and fun fragrance. So stay tuned. Well, our second batch of wax has come to temperature. These are hot. So let me show you here. I have placed my wooden wicks into the jar. And I still, even though the wooden wicks are pretty stiff, I still use the wick holders because I feel like it keeps the wick from getting off center when you pour. And our wax is at temperature. So these are going to be a lovely pink, pinkish red. And I also wanted to say, if you want to pour multi-layered candles, you can certainly do that. I've done candy corn candles, which are fun. The only thing you need to do is let that wax harden and set up in between. Otherwise, your colors just mix and mingle. Learn that one kind of the hard way. Get this off a little more. Now, what I have done is put the original blue wax back in to melt because, of course, it hardened up in the pot. And once these cool enough, they start to develop that tunnel around the wick. I will top off that area. Then I will do the same for these lovely pinkish red candles. I wish you all had smell-o-vision. It smells so delicious in here. One other little tip, and again, I've learned this the hard way. You can see where I've gotten red dye on my gloves and also on my little scrubber, but I can scrub that off. I have one of these little brushes. This happens to be an OXO, but I know Walmart sells their own brand for $5. And I just filled it with diluted bleach water. So if I get a dribble or a spill, because candle colorant tends to really stain, I just bleach it really quick and it comes right up that way. If you leave it, it may or may not come up. So I hope you've enjoyed this. Leave me a comment below. Have you ever tried making your own candles? And are you going to give this a try? You know, I think of candles more as being a fall and winter thing, but liking scent in the home, I still enjoy them in the evening, in the summer, to have some really nice scent in the home as well. Final word about cleanup, guys. So I only use these pitchers for candle making, obviously. You do not want to put any wax down your drain, down your toilet. What I do is I use my hot pot, which is over here somewhere. I produce boiling water, I pour it in, I take it outdoors, dump it in an area where I don't mind there being a little wax, you know, not in the best flower bed, then just wipe it with a paper towel. If you have a lot of sticky residue, 91% rubbing alcohol works well as a solvent. It just takes a lot of elbow grease to get it off. So having dedicated containers is a real important part. So more to come, probably next week. Thank you all for your well wishes and your prayers. It has meant the world to me. I've gotten so many encouraging emails, guys. And if you want to reach out, it's sweethoneybath@gmail.com. I love getting your emails. I love reading your comments. This has been like a little more of a thing than I thought it was. So, you know, I had my surgery. I came home, I made a video because that's how I roll. Then I did a whole bunch of stuff. And the next day I did a whole bunch more stuff. And the next day I did even more things. And what happened was, I was supposed to do that, but I took that as like a suggestion, not a directive. I was supposed to be like resting, right? So the stent, which is kind of like a straw that they put in the tube that connects your kidney and bladder, it's an irritant, but I started having lots and lots and lots of bleeding from where the stent was, like a lot. So at the risk of feeling lazy, I have taken it a little bit more easy yesterday and today, and I've just been doing sewing and less like construction and heavy lifting. Also, a word about my veggie pod. Oh, they say in Ohio, if you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes. I think that's very true. We are having really cold weather here. We are actually supposed to be down to 32 even into next week at night with frost and freeze warnings. So I will not be doing part 2 of the veggie pod until our weather moderates a bit. I don't want to stress the seeds out by putting them out, you know, prior to frost free date. So it's coming, guys. It just may be a little bit longer. And as far as a bread video, I know I promised you one. Not sure what I'm going to do because I decided that after weighing in for the hospital, I need to get back on my eating plan. So I'm back on that. So we may do some healthy cooking because that's always a good thing too, right? Yes. All right, all. I hope you are well. I hope you are healthy. I hope you are blessed. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, you know, the one down there, and then ring the bell to be notified of all the new videos. If you haven't done this as well, smash that like button and please leave me a comment below. Take care, everyone. I will see you very soon.